The pastor's voice echoed in an empty church. Every word felt like it was bouncing back at me, reminding me that I was alone. The coffin sat at the front, polished mahogany, catching the pale light from the stained glass windows. Inside it was my husband, the man who had held me when storms ripped through my life, the man who swore he'd never let me go. And yet, I was letting him go today. But I wasn't alone, because I had lost him. I was alone because the people who should have stood beside me weren't here. At first, I told myself they were late, that the door would open at any moment, and I'd see my parents, my sister, maybe even my best friend, slipping in, embarrassed but present. But the doors stayed shut. Not one parent, not one sibling, not even a single friend who had promised me they'd come. The pews stood empty, silent witnesses to the truth I didn't want to face. My hands trembled as I clutched the folded program, the edges tearing under the pressure of my grip. I couldn't even cry. The grief was there, raw and jagged, but it was strangled by something colder, the realization that I'd been abandoned on the darkest day of my life. The pastor spoke of ashes and dust, of life and death, but his words blurred in my ears. All I could hear was the echo of laughter, not here, but across town. At my sister's engagement party, they hadn't just skipped his funeral, they'd chosen her celebration over my devastation. And that truth sliced through me, deeper than any blade. When the casket was lowered into the ground later that afternoon, the wind whipped across the cemetery, rattling the bare branches above. I stood at the edge of the grave, my knees threatening to buckle, my nails digging into the cold wood of the coffin, as if I could hold on to him a moment longer. Then my phone buzzed in my coat pocket. Once, twice, over and over, until the vibration rattled through my bones. I pulled it out with trembling fingers. The screen lit up with a single name. Mother. And beneath it, 42 missed calls. My breath caught in my throat. Not a single word from her all morning. Not a single hug. Not a single tear shed beside me. But now she was calling. During the burial, I didn't answer. I shoved the phone back into my pocket. As the final shovel of dirt hit the coffin, my silence would be my answer. The burial ended with neighbors and co-workers offering their hollow condolences. People I barely knew put hands on my shoulder, murmuring words they thought would soothe, before slipping back into their cars. But my own family, my blood, was nowhere to be found. When the cemetery was empty, I finally sat in my car, staring at the gray sky through the windshield. My phone lit up again, a message this time. We need to talk, now. I laughed, a hollow, bitter sound that scared even me. They couldn't stand with me to bury him, but they could demand things from me while the dirt was still fresh on his grave. That was when something inside me shifted. Grief fused with betrayal, hardening into something sharper. I didn't know it yet, but that was the moment I stopped being the grieving widow and started becoming something else entirely. The next morning, the doorbell rang, once, twice, then over and over, until the sound carved itself into my skull. I opened the door, and there she was, my mother, still in the silk dress she had worn to the engagement party. Perfume clung to her skin, mingled with the faint scent of champagne. Her makeup was flawless, her hair perfectly pinned. She didn't look like a woman who had just buried her son-in-law. She looked like she was still at the party. Her lips tightened. We need to talk. I stared at her, my hand gripping the doorframe like it was the only thing holding me upright. You missed his funeral, I whispered. Her eyes flickered, but not with guilt. Annoyance. Sweetheart, it was unfortunate timing. Your sister's engagement is a once-in-a-lifetime event. Funerals can wait. You'll understand one day. The words sliced through me. Funerals can wait. Burying the man I loved was less important than cake and champagne. I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Important. That's what you call it? More important than the man who treated me better than this entire family ever has. Her face hardened. Don't be dramatic. Dwelling on death won't change anything. Life moves forward. And speaking of moving forward, her gaze flicked past me, into the We need to settle some matters now that he's gone. You can't be expected to handle everything on your own. It wouldn't be wise. Certain assets shouldn't be left in your hands alone. I froze. It hit me then. She wasn't here for me. She wasn't even here for him. She was here for what he had left behind. My fingers dug into the doorframe until my nails ached. The silence between us stretched like a wire pulled too tight. Come in, I said finally, my voice steady. She exhaled in relief, mistaking my calm for surrender. But she had no idea what had already started growing inside me. The living room still smelled faintly of lilies from the funeral arrangements. My mother sat primly on the sofa, crossing her legs like this was a business meeting. "Alina," she began, her voice clipped. "Professional. You're young. You don't understand how the world works. Your husband left behind assets, the house, the savings, even company shares. It isn't wise for you to handle all that alone. Your father and I think it's best if things are redistributed." The words slammed into me like a hammer. "Redistributed? To who?" I asked, though I already knew. Her smile was thin, rehearsed. "To your sister, of course. She's starting her new life with her fiancé. She'll need support, and you'll be fine. You're strong." That word, strong, it had always been their excuse. Strong meant I didn't need care. Strong meant I didn't deserve compassion. Strong meant they could strip me bare, and I would still stand smiling. But not this time. I leaned back in my chair, keeping my eyes locked on hers. "So you skipped my husband's funeral to toast her engagement, and now you want to take what little he left me too." She shifted uncomfortably, but her chin lifted in defiance. "Don't twist this. It's family duty. Your sister deserves the best. Don't be selfish." Selfish. Another knife, plunged into the heart of my grief. But I didn't flinch. I didn't scream. I simply rose from my seat, each movement deliberate. "I'll think about it," I said calmly. Her face brightened instantly, relief washing over her. She even touched my arm as she stood, her smile smug and satisfied. "I knew you'd come around. Good girl." I walked her to the door, holding it open, as she stepped out into the crisp morning air. The second the door clicked shut, I whispered into the silence. Not a chance. They had abandoned me at my darkest hour. Now I would show them what abandonment truly felt like. That night, I pulled out the lockbox my husband had kept hidden in his study. Inside were neatly stacked documents, the will, the deed, the contracts. Every single one of them bore his signature, and every single one left everything to me. Not a single line mentioned my family. It was all mine, his final act of trust. I held the papers in my hands, my tears dripping onto the ink. He had believed in me, trusted me to carry his legacy, and I swore in that moment I would not let them erase him. The phone buzzed again, my father this time, then my sister, then my so-called best friend. Missed call after missed call, message after message, but the one that chilled me came late that night, from an unknown number. "Sign the papers, or you'll regret it." I stared at the screen, my pulse steadying instead of racing. Fear should have gripped me, but fear had died with him. All that was left in me now was something far more dangerous: resolve. The next morning, I was already at my lawyer's office. Mr. Daniels had been our family attorney for years, a man with calm eyes and a voice that never rushed. When I slid the documents across his desk, his brows furrowed slightly. "Alina," he said after skimming the will, "your husband's instructions are crystal clear. Everything is yours. Legally, there's almost no ground for them to contest it." Almost. That word lingered in the air like smoke. "If they try," he continued, "they'll have to prove you unfit. But you'll need to be prepared. They may not fight fair. Prepared." That was exactly what I intended to be. By the time I left his office, my phone was buzzing again. Not with words of comfort. Not with apologies. With demands. My father's voicemail was sharp, authoritative. "You're being childish. Call your mother back immediately." My sister's messages dripped with smugness. "Don't make this harder than it has to be. You'll thank us later." And then there was one, written in all caps. "Sign the papers." I didn't reply. Silence would be my weapon. Days passed. Each time the doorbell rang, I let it echo unanswered. Each time my phone buzzed, I watched the screen until it dimmed. Until Sunday evening. That was when they came. All of them. My mother in another silk dress, as if grief had never brushed her skin. My father, jaw tight, shoulders stiff with authority. My sister, glittering ring flashing as she smirked. And trailing behind them, my best friend, the one who had abandoned me too. They didn't knock gently. They pounded. When I opened the door, the air itself seemed to thicken. My mother swept inside first, her perfume saturating the room. My father followed, his glare heavy with unspoken threats. My sister sat without being asked, crossing her legs with that same smug smile. "Alina," my father began, his voice booming. "This nonsense has gone far enough. You've ignored our calls, our messages. You are acting irrational. We're here to settle this now." I stayed near the window, the fading sunlight casting long shadows across my face. "Settle what?" My voice was quiet, almost casual. "The assets," my mother snapped. "Your sister deserves her share. She's starting her new life. You don't need all of this. And holding on to it makes you look bitter." Bitter. The word pierced deeper than they knew. Was I bitter? I was betrayed. But I didn't let the pain show. My sister leaned forward, her tone syrupy and cruel. "Come on, Alina. He's gone. You don't need all these things to remember him. Let us take care of it." My hand tightened around the frame of my husband's photo, which I had lifted from the mantel. "You want me to give up everything he built? Everything he trusted me with?" Her smirk widened. "You make it sound ugly. We just want what's fair." Fair. The word twisted in my chest like a blade. Where was fairness when I stood alone at his grave? Where was fairness when you toasted champagne while I lowered his coffin? I didn't argue. I didn't shout. Instead, I opened the door wide, letting the evening air spill into the room. "Leave," I said softly. "The next time we talk, it won't be here. It'll be in a place where truth is written in ink and sealed with law." My father's voice thundered. "Don't test us, Alina." I met his glare with steady eyes. "I already have." They left, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. But I stood motionless, clutching my husband's photo to my chest, a faint smile curling at the edges of my lips. They thought they were circling me. But in reality, I had already built the cage. The very next morning, letters went out, thick cream envelopes embossed with Mr. Daniel's seal. One for my parents, one for my sister, even one for my so-called best friend. Inside, a full copy of the will, every clause, every signature, every word leaving everything to me. By noon, the storm broke. My father's voice exploded over voicemail. "How dare you humiliate this family with lawyers? We could have handled this privately." My mother wept theatrically into the phone. "You don't understand what you're doing. You're tearing us apart." And my sister, her words were poison wrapped in sugar. "You'll regret this. You'll end up with no one. Don't come crawling back when you're alone in that big empty house." But I didn't reply. Not once. Their desperation echoed back at them like a mirror. My mother stormed into Mr. Daniel's office, causing such a scene that his secretary later described it to me in hushed tones, like scandalous gossip. My father tried to intimidate him, shouting about family honor. My sister flaunted her fiancé's wealth as if it could bend the law, but nothing worked. Every time they lunged, they collided with the unshakable truth of the will. The more they fought, the more the community noticed. Neighbors whispered. Friends who once admired my family began to see the crack. The perfect image they had built for decades crumbled with every greedy word they spoke. And me, I stayed silent, composed, dignified. The widow they painted as bitter was now seen as the daughter standing firm against cruelty. My silence wasn't weakness. It was my weapon. The breaking point came sooner than I expected. News spread that my sister's wedding rehearsal had been a disaster. The caterer pulled out. The florist canceled. The venue demanded payment up front. The family's reputation, once pristine, was rotting in the public eye, and the funds my parents had promised my sister, frozen, because the savings they had planned to redistribute were locked in my name. The irony was cruel. They had tried to strip me of everything, and ended up stripping her instead. That night, my phone lit up again, but this time, the voice on the other end wasn't angry. It was trembling. "My mother, Elena," she whispered, her breath shaky. "Please. They're all looking at us differently now. We need your help." I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the will spread out before me, my husband's signature steady and strong. For a moment, I closed my eyes and remembered the grave, the empty pews, the 42 missed calls that had come too late. I smiled. Calm. Deliberate. I needed you once too, Mom, I said softly. And you chose champagne over compassion. Now, you'll learn what that choice costs. Her sob cracked through the phone. But I didn't linger. I ended the call with the same quiet finality they had given me on the day of the funeral. Days later, the wedding went on, but stripped, humbled, and hollow. The grand affair my parents had envisioned shriveled into something pathetic. Guests whispered about missing luxuries, about the family's fall from grace, and my sister. She walked down the aisle in a gown not of pride, but of shame. I wasn't there. Instead, I spent that day at the cemetery, laying fresh lilies on my husband's grave. I told him everything. How silence had been my blade. How dignity had been my armor. How their betrayal had undone itself without me lifting a finger. The wind rustled through the trees, soft and steady, as if he was listening. And in that moment, I knew with certainty they had abandoned me once. But I had buried them too. Not in earth, not in stone, but in the truth of their own choices. And nothing, no apology, no regret, could unearth them again. Thank you for listening to my story. And don't forget to like and subscribe.